Dr. Alan Carter was a scientist who had spent years trying to develop a cure for a rare genetic disease. Ever since he was a child, he had been fascinated by science. He would mix different chemicals in his small home lab, hoping to create something extraordinary. His passion grew as he got older, and after years of hard work, he became a respected biochemist. But despite his intelligence and dedication, success did not come easily to him. Alan worked at a well-known research institute with his two closest colleagues, Dr. Michael Hayes and Sarah Collins. They had been working on the same project for years, trying to create a formula that could heal damaged cells. But no matter how many times they tried, their experiments kept failing. Every time they thought they were close to a breakthrough, something would go wrong. The chemicals wouldn't react as expected, the test samples would show no improvement, and sometimes, the results were worse than before. Failure after failure started to take a toll on Alan. He spent long nights in the lab, barely sleeping, trying to figure out where he was going wrong. His frustration grew, and doubt started creeping into his mind. One evening, after another failed test, Alan slammed his notebook shut and sighed heavily. "Maybe this is impossible," he muttered. Michael, who had been observing Alan's struggles, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Alan, science is built on failure. Every mistake we make teaches us something. We just have to listen to what it's telling us." Alan nodded but still felt defeated. Sarah, on the other hand, was not ready to give up. That night, while Alan and Michael left the lab, she stayed behind, going through every experiment they had done. She compared results, studied their failures, and looked for patterns they might have missed. The next morning, Sarah ran into the lab, holding a test tube with excitement in her eyes. "Alan. Michael. I think we missed something," she said breathlessly. Alan rubbed his tired eyes and took the test tube from her. "What do you mean?" he asked. Sarah pointed to the microscope. "Look at this under the lens." Alan and Michael peered into the microscope and saw something unusual. A tiny reaction had occurred in one of the failed test samples. It was small, almost invisible, but it was a sign of progress. Alan's heart started pounding. Had they been looking at failure the wrong way? "This isn't a failure," Michael said, his eyes lighting up. "It's an incomplete success." Alan felt a renewed sense of determination. Instead of throwing away their failed experiments, they decided to study them. They analyzed each mistake carefully, trying to understand why things didn't work. Slowly, they began adjusting their formula, changing the dosages, and modifying their approach. Days turned into weeks, and they continued their relentless pursuit. Then, one evening, Alan held a test tube containing their latest formula. This was their last attempt before the research institute shut down their project due to lack of results. He took a deep breath and poured the liquid into a petri dish. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, right before their eyes, the cells in the dish started to heal. Alan's hands trembled. "We did it," he whispered. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. Michael grinned, shaking his head. "Failure was our best teacher," he said. Their discovery turned into a life-saving drug, helping thousands of people, including Alan's own sister, Emily, who had been suffering from the disease for years. Alan finally realized that every failure had been a lesson, guiding him toward success. Failure had not been his enemy, it had been his greatest teacher all along.